Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are 4-1 with Mississippi State coming to town this weekend. I'm going to tell you why Georgia is going to absolutely crush Mississippi State. I'm going to dig into their team. I'm going to dig into what Georgia needs to do, what we need to see from Georgia as they prepare to take on the Texas Longhorns next week. But right now, it's Mississippi State, a struggling team, right? One of the worst teams in the SEC. This is going to be one of the easier games Georgia has left on the schedule. And Georgia should throttle them. There's no reason why they can't. I actually took Mississippi State to cover the 34 points. But this should be a no-brainer. I think it's going to go along the same way the Auburn game did a little bit. Slow-moving game. I think Mississippi State might be able to move the ball a little better than Georgia fans want. I think it, could be a quick first half where the game is still not completely, up in the air, but Georgia takes over in the second half like they did against Auburn. But let's talk about Mississippi State real quick. In week 1, they crushed a nobody. In week 2, they had a 30-23 loss on the road to Arizona State. Now, that score doesn't look too bad, but when you dig into the numbers, they gave up 346 yards on the ground to Arizona State on 57 attempts. So Arizona State just ran the ball at will, up and down the field, right down their throats. They didn't really need to throw the ball much, but when you're running for 6 yards a carry, run it 57 times and win the game. Defensively, Arizona State had 4 sacks. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because that's something that Georgia's got to get better at. They need to get to the quarterback and get him down to the ground. They've got pressure, and occasionally they'll get a sack or two here and there, but that's still something we want to see from the Georgia defense. I'm going to dig into the numbers there because a lot of teams are sacking Mississippi State right now. Week 3, they had a bad loss to Toledo, 41-17. Not good. The Toledo quarterback actually had a monster game. Tucker Gleason, he was 23 for 28 for 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. So Arizona State ran through Mississippi State, and then Toledo threw all over them. So, we know that you can run on Mississippi State and you can throw on them. Georgia should get into the 40s, but I'm starting to think once they're up 35-3, 35-7 in the fourth quarter, they're going to get the game over with. It's not about covering the spread. I know Georgia fans love to cover the spread. Kirby Smart doesn't care. He wants to get the game over with, and I do think they're going to have somewhat of a vanilla conservative game plan because why would you show something the week before Texas? Carson Beck should be able to throw 0 passes in this game and Georgia beat Mississippi State, right? They shouldn't be showing anything crazy. Keep it simple, move the chains, try to get some explosive plays here and there, but figure out the run game. That's what I want Georgia to do. This is a get-right game. And again, Toledo didn't necessarily run through Mississippi State. They threw it over them, but the Gators did. Mississippi State lost that game to Florida 45-28 at home. The Gators rushed for 226 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Bulldogs, averaged 6.3 yards a carry. Graham Mertz threw for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Florida's defense sacked Mississippi State 3 times. So Florida had their way with State, a Florida team that was limping into that game. I mean, they were bad. They were awful. They still might be bad. We'll see what they do against Tennessee. But that was a tough home loss to Mississippi State, giving up a bunch through the air and on the ground. In a 35-13 loss to Texas, I guess that was last week, 2 weeks ago, the Longhorns rushed for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaged 6.4 yards a carry. Arch Manning was terrific, and their defense sacked Mississippi State 6 times. So again, Texas, they ran through Mississippi State. Florida rushed for over 200. Arizona State rushed for over 300. You can run through Mississippi State, and Georgia, that's something they haven't done a great job with. Georgia's 95th in the country in rushing offense. They're averaging just 132 yards per game. I'm telling you right now, everyone's rushing for over 132 yards against Mississippi State. So I expect Georgia to be able to run the ball. And again, that's what I want to see more than anything. Carson Beck can go out there and have a big game. I don't know why he would struggle through the air, but I want Georgia's run game to get going. If you can't run through Mississippi State, if I can get my words out on this Friday morning, if you can't run against Mississippi State, who are you going to run against, right? You got Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Georgia Tech isn't terrible against the run, but Florida's not terrible against the run. Mississippi State is. If you can't run through them, good luck the rest of the way. I mean, it just is what it is. They're not going to be able to run the ball the rest of the season if they can't run it on Saturday with all these yards that Mississippi State's given up. So Georgia really needs to get that going. And we need to see more of Nate Frazier, right? It can't just be Trevor Etienne, then Branson Robinson rushing for 2, maybe 3 yards, and then an occasional Nate Frazier. I want to see Nate Frazier in this game, get some carries, and make an impact. He's too good not to. I'm going to keep going in a second, talk about penalties, explosive yards, what we should be able to see from Georgia. But first, collegebronze.com, right? Gotta plug it. That's where you can get this bad boy right here. It's the #1 best looking Georgia Bulldog statue on the market. If you're looking for some Georgia memorabilia for your front porch, your office, back porch, by the pool, wherever, this is where to get it. All the information is in the description below in this video, and you can get a discount. Don't miss out on the discount. Promo code DAWGPOST, DAWGPOST. That's the only place really where you can get a discount on this bad boy right here. Made in Roswell, Georgia, okay? Local company. It's the best. Get yours today. Let's talk about penalties for a second, because Mississippi State's having them. They had 10 penalties against Toledo, 8 penalties against Florida, 9 against Texas. So over their last 3 games, they're averaging 9 penalties a game. Not going to cut it. Not going to cut it, especially in Athens. Now, I expect the crowd to show up a little bit more. I don't know why they would. The only reason they would is because Kirby kind of called them out on it, but we'll see. Maybe it's the exact same against Auburn. Georgia fans just can't get up for Mississippi State. For whatever reason. The students have to do a better job. I think the normal average fans stay a lot longer than the students do. The students have to do a better job. It just doesn't seem like they care nearly as much as they used to. Anyway, I expect the crowd to be a little bit better than it was for Auburn simply because of that. So they should be able to allow Mississippi State to, not allow them to, but force them to make some penalties, especially on the offensive line. And if you go backwards against the Georgia defense, good luck, right? They've given up some 3rd and long so far this year, but it's still tough to do. So they need to get Mississippi State moving backwards, get the ball back, run the ball, get that run game going, and get this game over with. Mississippi State does give up some explosive plays. Texas had 4 different backs rush for at least 20 yards in one rush, right? Have a 20-yard carry. 4 different backs, that's a lot. The longest rush that Mississippi State gave up in that game was 38, but when you have 4 different guys pull off a run of 20-plus yards, that's saying something. That means a lot of guys are finding holes, and a lot of guys are having room to run. So that's on Mississippi State's defense and linebackers not getting to where they need to be. Against Florida, 6 different runners had a run of 10-plus yards, the longest of 32. 6 different runners had a 10-plus yard carry. That's a lot. Those aren't explosive runs, just 10 yards. But still, 6 different guys had a big enough hole where they were able to get 10-plus yards. 6 different guys, not 6 times, 6 different guys said, oh, cool, easy, 10 yards, right? That's a lot. And again, this Mississippi State front 7, it's not great. It's not going to get easier against the Dogs. Against Toledo, 4 different rushers had a 10-plus yard, the longest of over 13. So they were not explosive on the ground, but they did have 4 different rushers hit a 10-yard run. Against Arizona State, the longest rush was of 39 yards. So they occasionally can give up some big runs, and that's something I want to see more of too. But at the end of the day, they're giving up sacks too. Texas had 6 sacks against Mississippi State. Florida had 3 sacks. Toledo had 5 sacks. And Arizona State had 4 sacks. So Georgia should be able to run the ball, something we need to see improvement of, and they need to be able to sack the quarterback. Everyone else is doing it. Georgia's got to do that. So 2 things that you'd like to see Georgia improve on before the Texas game is the pass rush, getting to the quarterback, not just creating pressure, not just creating havoc, but getting to him and getting those drive-killing sacks. And that's something they should be able to do against Mississippi State. And again, offensively, run the football. Everyone else is doing it. There's no reason why Georgia shouldn't be able to do it, especially if they give Nate Frazier some opportunities to run. In the end, I'm thinking like a 35-7 game or a 38-10 game. I think it'll be a comfortable, strong win. Georgia won't cover. That might piss a lot of people off. This is what I think. That's what I expect. But I nailed that Auburn game pretty much to a T. I think this game will be a little bit more comfortable. Georgia will win by more than 18 points. I think it'll be like 25-26, maybe 28. I just think 34 is a lot. If Georgia covers that line of 34, 35, whatever it is, that's a really impressive win. Texas didn't cover their line against Mississippi State. So if Georgia doesn't cover, that's not the end of the world. It doesn't matter what Vegas thinks. It's about winning the game, looking good, and moving on, and not having any injuries, and trying to fix what you've been struggling with. And I think Georgia's got a great opportunity to do that. Thanks for watching this video. You can read more over on Dog Post. Sign up to the newsletter. Get your Bulldog. Again, all the information is in the description below in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over on the website.